Hey guys, this is your notes for skin and body membranes. Because we covered body membranes in a previous class and made our concept map, we're not going to take direct notes on those, so please review to those when you're looking through your notes. This is integumentary system, and that includes the skin, oil and sweat glands, and hair and nails. So we're just talking about the cutaneous membrane here. Integument means covering, so that's why it's called the integumentary system. And the uppermost layer of your skin is hardened, and it's full of a protein called keratin, which makes up a lot of your hair and nails, as well as the upper layer of your skin. And so the functions of your integumentary system are to protect. So it protects against mechanical, like bumps and cuts, chemical things like acids and bases. It protects you from thermal, heat and cold. It protects you from UV radiation as well as from bacteria. You can think of, without your skin, all of those things would go directly into your organs, and so your skin is really important to protect you. And so it regulates your heat loss as well through the capillary network, so the blood vessels can dilate close to the skin or constrict close to the skin, dilating when you're really hot and constricting when you're very cold, as well as sweat glands. You're going to sweat more when it's hot, and that sweat will evaporate to cool you down. It has some excretory functions. Think about when you're sweating, you lose water, you lose salts, and you also lose some urea, some waste from your body. The integumentary system also manufactures proteins related to your immunity and vitamin D. So vitamin D is very important for calcium uptake. And it has sensory receptors in it as well, touch, pressure, temperature, and pain. And remember, this is all relating back to our essential question of how do the skin and other body membranes protect us from injury and infection. So here's the structure of your skin. You can see the picture here. You have two layers, your epidermis, which is this top orange part, and then the dermis, which is the beige part. There's also subcutaneous tissue, which is not really part of your skin, but it's directly below it, so it's important to talk about. Your epidermis is made of stratified squamous epithelium, and it's keratinizing, meaning it becomes hard and tough. Your dermis is made of dense connective tissue, and if you have a burn or friction, like from a bad shoe, that can allow interstitial fluid to come in, and that's actually what causes a blister. So it's a separation of your dermis and your epidermis. And then lastly, your subcutaneous tissue is hypodermis, under the dermis, adipose tissue, and it anchors skin to your underlying organs. And that's a site for fat storage, so it's going to insulate your body. It's also a shock absorber as well as an insulator. So if you fall, your subcutaneous tissue is going to take a lot of that pressure and shock. This is a picture of your epidermis. It's avascular, so think about when you shave, you're not you don't bleed unless you cut yourself, so shaving that top layer of cells off doesn't negatively affect you. And it contains keratinocytes, which are cells that produce the protein keratin. In your epidermis, there's 5 layers of strata. The stratum basal is the deepest layer, and those are these columnar cells down here. They are constantly dividing. You have millions of new cells daily, and these daughter cells are going to get pushed towards the surface. And as they get pushed towards the surface, they're going to go into the other layers of strata. The next layer is stratum spinosum, which is this layer here. The cells start to become flatter, and they become keratinized, as well as in the stratum granulosum, and you can see how flat the cells have become if you look at that picture. In the stratum lucidum, which is found on hairless skin like palms of hands and soles of feet, the cells have died. They are too far from the blood supply to continue to live. And then in the stratum corneum, which is the top layer, it's about 20 to 30 cells thick, depending on where it is in your body. And it's about 3/4 of the epidermal thickness. So this is a pretty thick layer of skin. They are also dead. They're too far away from the vascular supply, the blood supply, and they're filled with keratin. They are hard, keratinized cells. And this protects deeper cells from the environment and from water loss. Same kind of assaults we were talking about before. In your skin, you have a pigment called melanin. It could be yellow, brown, or black, and it's produced by the melanocytes, cells that produce melanin, in the stratum basal. Sunlight stimulates melanin production. That's why you get tan in the sun. And it can accumulate in cells, and it comes in granules called melanosomes. And they are taken up by the keratinocytes, the other skin cells. And what the melanin is going to do is going to go over top of the nucleus, and it protects the DNA from mutations caused by UV radiation. And the concentrated melanin becomes freckles and moles. Other cells that are found in the skin are epidermal dendritic cells, and those are going to alert and activate your immune system to bacterial and viral threats, so if you have bacteria coming in, as well as Merkel cells, which are sensory and touch receptors at where the epidermis and dermis meet. Then below the epidermis, you have your dermis. The dermis is very thick on the soles of feet and palms of hands and thin on the eyelids. And you can actually feel that if you touch your hand. It's a strong, stretchy envelope that helps bind your body together. So your papillary layer is the upper part of the dermis, and it has projections that kind of go like this. And you can see that if you look at one of the pictures. And this has capillary loops in it, so the things that will cool you off. Capillaries are the smallest blood vessels in your body. It has pain and touch receptors, and this is actually how your fingerprints are created, from those capillary loops. And then below the papillary layer is your reticular layer, which is the deepest layer of skin. It has connective tissue and blood vessels, sweat and oil glands, and lamellar corpuscles, which are your deep pressure receptors. So if you're really pressing hard, those will sense that stimulus. And this is where the collagen and elastin fibers are. Those are both proteins, and they're very stretchy, so they make your skin be able to stretch and bounce back. And collagen and elastin in the reticular layer decreases with age, and that's why you get sags and wrinkles as you get older. It has lots of blood vessels in the dermis, and that helps maintain homeostasis, as we talked about with the dilation when it's hot and the constriction of the blood vessels when it's cold. And it has lots of nerves, including the specialized receptors that we talked about in today's lab. So here's a picture. We have our epidermis and dermis, and you can see these loops and layers, the papillae that go up and down. As well as your subcutaneous tissue. We have some hairs in there. You can see all the blood vessels that go through, as well as some other things that we're going to talk about. Skin color. There's 3 factors that affect skin color. 1, the amount and kind of melanin in the epidermis, and that would affect, whether you're black or white, or, what color your skin is naturally. You can also become a little bit orange if you eat a lot of beta carotene. So the amount of carotene in your stratum corneum and subcutaneous tissue can make your skin look a little orange. And if you have the amount of oxygen-rich hemoglobin, so when you get hot and you get red, that's because of the hemoglobin, the blood that's rushing close to your skin. Whereas if you have heart failure or a breathing disorder, you can have something called cyanosis, which means you have poorly oxygenated hemoglobin, and you get blue tinge to your skin, which you can see on the fingertips of this old woman here who probably has heart failure or some sort of breathing disorder. All right, so moving on to skin appendages. So there's many glands in your skin called cutaneous glands, and they are all exocrine, meaning their products are released to the skin via ducts, or tubes that they travel through. They are formed by the stratum basal, and they actually, instead of going up like the epidermal cells, they'll go down into the dermis. So the first gland is the sebaceous or oil gland. It's all over your skin except for the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet. It usually empties into a hair follicle. You can see a sebaceous gland here emptying into the hair follicle. And it produces sebum, and sebum keeps your skin soft and moist, it prevents brittle hair, it kills bacteria, and it's produced more during puberty, which is a lot of times why you have acne issues during puberty. because those follicles, those pores will become clogged. The next type of gland is sweat gland. There's more than 2.5 million sweat glands on your body. They're also known as sudoriferous glands. And there's two types. The eccrine is more numerous. It's found all over your body, and it produces sweat, which is water plus salts, vitamin C, metabolic waste, and lactic acid. And the acid actually inhibits bacteria growth on your body. And it opens as a pore, not the common usage of pore, but it opens as a pore into your skin. And sweat is heat regulating. So as your sweat evaporates off your body, it's going to take body heat with it. And on a hot day, you can actually lose 7 liters of water. So make sure you're drinking on hot days. The second kind is apocrine glands, which are found in your armpit and your genitals. They have a much larger duct that empties into the hair follicles, whereas eccrine go into a pore on the skin, not necessarily associated with your hair follicle. It's the same as the secretion from the eccrine gland, except it also has fatty acids and proteins, and it's more of a white yellow color rather than clear as regular sweat is. And it is produced from pain, stress, and sexual foreplay. And so here's a picture of your sweat glands. You have an eccrine gland, which is going directly to the skin through a duct, and an apocrine gland, which is actually being released into a hair follicle. You can see that the apocrine gland is much bigger than the eccrine gland. Okay, hairs and hair follicles. You have millions of hairs, and their purpose is to guard your head, shield your eyes, that's your eyelashes. They guard against foreign particles like the hairs in your nose. However, they've lost a lot of their usefulness because they used to provide insulation. You think of an animal's hairs stand up when it's cold. Our hairs still stand up, but we get goosebumps, and it doesn't really help us out very much. Hairs are produced by a hair follicle. They have a root that's enclosed, but that's the part that's enclosed in the skin by the follicle, as well as a shaft, which is the part of the hair that's projecting from the skin. And these are formed by the divisions of cells in the stratum basal in the hair bulb. And so as the cells push away, they keratinize and they die, which is why it doesn't hurt to get your hair cut. And you don't bleed because they're not vascularized. So here's the structure of a hair. The medulla is the middle. The cortex makes up the bulk of the hair and contains the pigment, at least in humans. And then you have your cuticle, which is the scaly outer portion of the hair. And that helps keep your hairs apart and not matted together. And if the keratin, it's heavily keratinized. So if the keratin frizzes out at the ends, you get split ends, which I think I have right now. So some fun facts about hair. The pigment is made by melanocytes in the hair bulb, and so your hair color depends on the color of melanin and the amount of melanin. You can have various sizes and shapes, and the shape of the shaft actually determines the texture of the hair. So whether it's curly or straight is all the shape of the shaft of the hair. And it's among the fastest growing tissues in the body. The reason I included this picture is because chemotherapy kills quickly growing cells, which is why it kills the hair, because the hair is one of the fastest growing cells in the body. Here's a hair follicle. So we have an epidermal sheath here that forms the hair, as well as a dermal sheath below that will supply blood to the hair. So that's going to be down here. Really important thing to talk about is the erector pili muscle. That's a smooth muscle that when contracted pulls the hair upright. And this is why your hair will raise and why we get goosebumps. And it's actually used for insulation in most mammals, but it's really useless for us. And then finally we have nails. Corresponds to the hoof and claw. It has a free edge up here, a body, which is the visible part of the nail, a root, which is this part under the fold, and then we have a fold of skin that goes over the top with the cuticle. The cells in the nail become keratinized and die. That's why we can cut them off and there's no problem. And your nail is transparent, almost colorless, and if you look at it, it's pink because of the blood supply underneath it, because of the blood supply in the dermis, except for the lunule, which is this white crescent shape on your nail, and that's actually over your thickened nail matrix, the part of your nail that makes new cells for your nail to grow. And that's why you see that white lunule on some of your nails. Okay, so there's your notes, and talk to you later.